I'll just do a little character introduction. The leader of the group and the oldest is Calum Dawnwarden. He's a 24-year-old elf paladin. He's got a little brother, Duskwhirl. Also, I guess he's Duskwhirl Dustguard. Oh, did I say Dawngarden or Dawnwarden? It's Calum Dawnwarden, and his little brother is Duskwhirl Dawnwarden, since they're siblings. And he's an 8-year-old elf ranger. And last but not least, we have Lucius Silverblade, who's a 17-year-old human fighter. The background lore of the characters is that Calum and Duskwhirl's parents from 28 years ago were in an illegal herb trade. You know what herb? Marijuana. Anyway, and they had not quite like an empire, but you know in Risk when you have like a few troops on half the countries in the map, but everybody else has 100 troops on there, so you're not really a force, but you're not really a force, but you're an influence, I guess. And that's what their parents were. They had a bunch of different towns they went to, grew weed, sold weed, smoked weed. You know how it is. But that's how they were. They had some money, whatever. But then they got arrested. And they had to spend 10 years in jail. So Calum, who was about 4 at the time, he was taken in by a religious convent, also known as a cult. And I don't know what the cult will be called. We'll figure it out at some point, right? Maybe it'll be Essential. And Calum, while he was there, he was bullied. He was alone. It was mostly humans there. It was mostly... a lot of the people there were like born in the cult, so there was just a superiority complex, and he was a little elf drug baby all alone in the world, you know? And he was getting picked on by some of the loyalist children who were born in the cult, calling him names like Tainted Elf, and they even wrote a song to the theme of Tainted Love and TH Seized, because of the reason his parents were arrested. And basically he got called as many slurs as Malcolm X, and all of a sudden, when after years and years of abuse, some kid about half his age, maybe a little bit less, came up and he did like a flying Superman punch. He like jumped up, slam, and then he grabbed another kid that was bullying Calum, and he swung him in a circle around, beating the other kids off. Wait, pause. He was just swinging the dude around, beating the other dudes. Anyway, that kid, that one that came to the defense of Calum, that's the younger version of Lucius. And he was born with that one disease that he's basically just got like infinite myoglobin or whatever. I'm sure you guys remember back in like 2013 seeing that one kid where he was 7 years old and he looked like a fucking like MMA fighter. But Lucius, that makes him so he's like 8 or 9 years old, and he just looked like a mini Dwayne Johnson. He's just fucking built. And so he came to protect Calum, and ever since then they've been best of buds, possibly even kissing buds. Who knows? We'll figure it out. Finally, Duskwhirl, Calum's little brother. Their parents got out after their 10-year sentence, and at that point, like, Calum had been in the cult 10 years. They didn't know where he was. They just never talked to him again. He hasn't seen his parents. But they're basically homeless and jobless because their not empire had crumbled, and it was replaced by salvia stands, shroom stands. There's this new drug that's been discovered called tobacco. What is that? And they had no connections, so they just kind of became street rats. They're stealing the stuff they need, getting money, but over time, they kind of work themselves back up. They get a little business going. Who knows? Maybe they got into the shrooms. I feel like you can grow shrooms easy, right? But they got their business going, and they got comfortable enough. They got a bed, they got a house, they got some money. So they started like fucking on top of the money and stuff. And they created Duskwhirl. She's pregnant, and they name him Duskwhirl. Who knows why? I mean, we already covered they're like drug lords, so they don't know what's going on. So Duskwhirl is fine. He basically grows up. He's learning how to be like a little shithead. He pickpockets people, like, I don't know, the parents are always gone on drug deals and stuff, so he's just kind of left to his own design. And he's well, I guess for context, for everything involved in the character creation, I just either rolled dice or flipped coins, kind of for the randomness. And for Duskwirl, I just so happened to roll. He's a ranger with honestly kind of broken stats. We'll get into those as we come across them in battle and whatnot. With a criminal background and a chaotic neutral alignment. So I kind of picture him as like a Naruto / Dennis the Menace type of kid, but in, I don't know, whatever, medieval times. So he's gonna be out there like hunting his own food, stealing shit, stealing food. So that's kind of how he is. And also on that note, to the squared, to the second degree or whatever, when I was doing the creation, it seems like I forgot to roll the alignments for Lucius and Calum. So I did that afterwards, and literally 2 times in a row, I got neutral for Lucius. So I was like, well, fuck it. I guess he's neutral. He's just one of those neutral aliens from Futurama or whatever. And then for Calum, he also got lawful neutral. And at that point, I just didn't even re-roll it. It fit the party. It seems destiny wants these people to be a certain way. So that's how they are. And then to connect those two to Duskwirl, I'm going to say that like the cult that Calum and Lucius are in, one of the board members of the cult is like a Littlefinger type guy. And I picture maybe he's like half snake or dragon or whatever that Dungeons and Dragons has, for where he could be like, I'm in the darkness, I'm a sneaky boy. But he apparently, I'm guessing, had known about Calum and his parents and their crimes and whatever. So then he found out about Duskwirl through that and his spies. And he just kept an eye on him because that's how he is. He's like, oh, he could be something to hold against Calum at some point. But then Duskwirl started to become like the badass he is, where he's a ranger and he has crazy busted stats. So he's like, oh, damn. Maybe we need this kid. He's kind of the cool guy. And I know exact person to quote unquote recruit him. And then he just kind of like faded into the shadows or whatever. And so they went back to the cult and they sent his older brother and Lucius, the dynamic duo, if you will. And they went and he's like, Calum. No, he wouldn't have known of him. So he was like, you there, shitty child. Is your name Duskwirl? Yeah, what's it to you? Oh, I should probably do it in the voices. You there, you child. Are you Duskwirl? Yeah, I'm Duskwirl. What's it to you, fuckhead? Or something like that. It appears that I'm your older brother. Are mom and dad still doing drugs and shit? Yeah, they're a couple of fuckheads. A couple of knobs, if you will. I don't do drugs. I just go out and I punch people for no reason and everything. I'm an asshole, you know? Anyway, I feel like a kid that does drugs is worse than an asshole, but also a victim, so that's tough. Anyway, they got together and they brought him back to the cult. And I'm going to say when they picked him up, he was like 5 or 6, so he was still pretty young and everything was new. So they pick him up and he's in the cult for a year or 2, but he's so young and he's an asshole. He's not buying into it. He's like, I don't think your God is real. I believe in the thing called love. Or whatever that song is. I don't know. Whatever a kid believes. He doesn't care. But since his parents have always been away on like trafficking and drug deals, he's been surviving on his own. He's a good fighter. But anyway, the real story, that was the backstory, or the prequel, or the prologue, I guess.